The big question in the sports world this week, does Deebo Samuels get traded before the NFL draft? We've got a few other things that are worth betting on, though. This is episode 199 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. And a quick look at how we did last episode, Brett. It's very green. I have one loss with my Nuggets plus 6.5 pick, but I did hit my pick of the pod. And a few positive plays like the Athletics and Dodgers run lines and the Capitals money line after they had already clinched a playoff berth the night before. You did rather well yourself.
Yeah, you know what, Higgins? It's nice when we both have winning records on the podcast. I lost my Levy lock, though, so I'm clearly a big loser. Just a big fat loser. Nothing to celebrate over here, Higgins. We'll make do coming off that Levy lock loss. We'll celebrate the 2-1 record a little bit, I guess, but not happy about losing the lock. That's the one we're quote-unquote most confident in, right, Higgins? So you kind of want to hit that one.
I hit mine, so hopefully my goal is to catch up with you so far. I had a cold start to my pick of the pods to start the year. Brett, that Deebo Samuels question, we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft later. We're going to have another episode before the first round next Thursday. But it's an interesting proposition, and there's a few first rounds being offered to the Niners for that guy, I'm sure.
I'm sure everyone's calling, right? The report was the other day that Deebo Samuel officially requested a trade. Now, the timeline of that trade could have been a week ago, Higgins, but, whatever. And, some reporters have come out and said that the 49ers, have zero intent to trade Deebo Samuel regardless of the trade request. We know that A.J. Brown is unhappy with the Titans, Higgins. DK Metcalf is another guy rumored in these trade circles as well. So there's a few names out there.
A few receivers out there specifically.
Yeah, I don't really know if I expect any of them to be on the move, but it's fun to talk about.
It is. There's a bunch of mock drafts coming out before the NFL draft, too. I don't know how much weight we hold in those. We'll get into that a little bit later towards the end of the episode again. Brett, let's talk about a beginner's Boulevard, though. In this episode, I want to talk about contrarian betting. It's also betting against the public, and there's been a few examples of this floating around social media over the past 2 days. I mean, specifically on Wednesday, there was a play in each of the NBA games that had 90% or more of the public's money on it. Now, 2 of those 3 did hit. Do you like to ride with the public, or are you a contrarian that likes to fade the public?
What does it mean if I don't really take that into account? Like, what if I just, I do my own thing, Higgins?
You can do your own thing, but you're noted for saying they don't build cities in the middle of the desert from having everybody win. So I would always say that you might be a little bit contrarian. I play contrarian a lot.
I might be contrarian. I certainly think I've contributed to some of those buildings in Las Vegas. So I don't really know where I fall. But, truthfully, right, I never look at this, right? When I'm making my wagers, Higgins, usually what I'm taking into account is injuries, how the team has performed over, I would say last 5 games usually is what I'm looking at, like what their trend is over the last 5 games, injury reports, if players are resting or things of that nature now. In baseball, sometimes it's a player off day, right? Things of that nature. Yeah. So that's more what I'm taking into consideration than where the public's money is, but it's certainly a strategy to just fade the public. That is not unheard of.
Yeah, and the NBA playoffs, at least this first round, has seemed to be either you are with the public or you're against the public. People are betting very heavily on certain sides of a lot of these matchups. For example, the Bucks Bulls, who they're playing again on Friday, that was the one bet on Wednesday that had 90% of the money but did not cash because the Bucks lost overall to the Bulls, and now they go to Chicago tied 1-1. Brett, because of this, I'm backing Milwaukee in Game 3. I like them at -2 because Chicago surprising Milwaukee, getting that win in that fashion, really kind of dominating that game and being able to contain everyone but Giannis until the end. I think Milwaukee's going to turn the tide and they're going to come out a lot stronger and more focused in Game 3. So 2 points, that's not too big for me. I'm going to take Milwaukee on the spread.
Yeah, well, the reason it's at 2 points, Higgins, is because Chris Middleton suffered an MCL sprain in Game 2 and will not be available, obviously, for Game 3. So, yeah, this is a big stay-away game for me. I do not know what to expect in this one. Going to be interesting. I expect Giannis to be on DeMar DeRozan a lot more in this game. So we'll see what happens here, Higgins. But, you'll certainly be backing the best player on the court. So never a bad thing to do in an NBA game.
And if Giannis just goes absolute Greek mode, is that a term, Greek mode? I think he would absolutely just dominate, maybe get a triple-double and just carry the Bucks. Get it beast mode, Greek mode.
Greek mode. There you go, man. All right, whatever floats your boat, Higgins.
I try.
Speaking of boats, this game is now going to be actually in Atlanta, but Miami, there are boats there. Big boat town in Miami, Florida. But Miami has a 2-0 lead, Higgins, in the series against Atlanta. They've dominated these games. No Clint Capella for the Hawks. I think that's a big disadvantage for the Hawks. It's obviously one of their best rebounders and one of their best finishers at the rim as well. So it's a big miss in this series. I think the Heat probably sweep Atlanta, Higgins. Atlanta's going to come out. They're going to fight in this one. They're going to try and prove that they're not dead yet, but I just think it's a mismatch here. And the Heat probably take a 3-0 series lead. They're giving, yes, they are giving 1.5 to Atlanta. I think they cover the spread. So instead of taking -120 on the money line, I'm going to take that -110 number there, Higgins, and the 1.5.
And see, this was more of a stay-away game for me. You mentioned Chris Middleton's injury being the reason why you're staying away from that Bucks-Bulls game for right now, and I understand that. The Heat and the Hawks, it's the series that, at least to start, I think I've watched the least of all these NBA playoff matchups. But Trae Young coming back to Atlanta would have me a little bit nervous. I know they're without Clint Capella, like you said. I think that does make a big difference for them down in the paint, but Atlanta, I don't know if they get swept here, and if they can win Game 3, then I think Miami would take the next 2 pretty handedly.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to come down to Game 3, no doubt about it.
Saturday, we already have a few lines out, and the big question is, are the Sixers going to complete their sweep of Toronto? I mean, Joel Embiid hitting that three-pointer when it was a tie game late had him feeling, and a lot of fans having some flashbacks to when the Sixers lost on a last-second 3 in Toronto a few years ago. Philly just being 3 points favorites here, having already overcome the adversity of going to Toronto in Game 3 and coming out with the win. I think they're going to do it again, so I'm taking them -3.
Yeah, look, Higgins, I think this is a tough spot for Toronto to be in. They're injured. They're beat up right now. They're down 3-0 in this series. I don't expect them to, come out flat or anything of that nature. I expect them to fight a little bit. This is a team, that's won a championship recently, has a championship caliber coach as well. So, I'm with you, though. I think Philly gets it done in Game 4.
And if the Sixers can come out rested from this series with a sweep, it'll set them up, especially considering that the Bulls were able to steal one from the Bucks to tie that at 1-1 right now. And Boston surprisingly sending it to Brooklyn at 2-0. I still have a feeling that Celtics-Nets series might even go a full 7, but Brooklyn needs to respond on Saturday, I'll probably bet be on that game somewhere on Saturday. I can't make heads or tails of it right now as of Thursday night, though. I got to wait till closer to game time.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Higgins. We'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting game. KD obviously didn't shoot very well from the field in the last game, although he scored, 25, 27 points, something like that. So he did find a way to get it, quote-unquote, done a little bit, Higgins. But they're just going to need better games from, your two best players. When you're built around superstars, Higgins, so when you're relying on your best players to be your best players, they have to, I'm going to say it a third time here, be your best players. And KD was obviously feeling some of that Celtics pressure in the last game. Now they were very physical with him, Higgins. We'll see if they'll be able to be as physical in Brooklyn, but just definitely an interesting series to watch for sure.
Kyrie and KD went a combined 8 for 30 on the floor in Game 2. The only reason KD was able to get 27 points is because he was able to get to the line because, like you said, they're playing so physical against him that he's just getting constantly fouled, getting sent to the line. He went 18 for 20 at the line in Boston in Game 2. I wouldn't be surprised if I agreed now that they're in Brooklyn that it's not going to necessarily be able to be as physical right now, but I think the Nets probably will come out and win this. I don't know if that hook should still be there by Saturday, though, so I'm hoping that Brooklyn and that line comes down a little bit. I mean, because Boston, they're up 2-0. They should be favored a little bit more than this being 3.5-point dogs, I'm hoping. I'm hoping by Saturday.
We'll see what happens, Higgins. So, I think, a lot of people are going to be backing the Nets here. They don't expect the Nets to be down 3-0.
Let's take a look at some baseball going on Friday as well, Brett. And we got a couple early games. I mean, Thursday was a very light schedule for baseball, so we got a good schedule heading into the weekend as we set up for some weekend series. And I'm going to start it off with a parlay, actually. This Brewers-Phillies game on Friday night in Philadelphia. We've got Freddie Peralta. We've got Ranger Sanchez on the mound. And if we look at both of those pitchers to start their seasons, it has not been strong. Peralta, he's 0-1, has not gotten his win yet, and his ERA is north of 10 through 2 starts. Ranger Suarez, he has a win. He's 1-0, but his ERA is just south of 6 through 2 starts. I think that both these bats are going to be alive a little bit. Philly's got a very powerful lineup. I'm taking Philadelphia on the money line at -132, and I'm combining that with the over 8 because we've seen runs both times these pitchers have been out here so far, and 8 feels a little low to me, so plus 258 with that parlay.
All right, fair enough, Higgins. I'm rooting for a lot of runs in that one, and preferably by the Philadelphia Phillies. But sticking in the Phillies division, I'm heading over to a Marlins-Braves game where Trevor Rogers will be taking the mound for the Marlins against Kyle Wright. Look, Higgins, here's just, my opinion, right? I don't think the Braves are world beaters. I think they're a very good baseball team. But I think on nights or days or whatever, when they are, let's put it this way, when they don't have the best pitcher on the mound, I think they're beatable, right? So I think facing Trevor Rogers in this matchup, clearly one of the Marlins' two aces, along with Sandy Alcantara, I think, Rogers has the advantage here. Kyle Wright, at one point in time, Higgins was a big prospect, but he looks like he's kind of sliding into that Braves fifth starter role. So I just think it's a pitching advantage for the Marlins. I think they're figuring out some of their lineup issues. Jazz Chisholm's been a very hot button topic throughout the season where he's been batting. He homered tonight from the one spot, Higgins, from the leadoff spot. So I imagine he'll be back in there on Friday as well.
Great fantasy guy to start the year, too. He's very versatile, plays a lot of position, that Jazz Chisholm. I have one more baseball game on Friday, Brett, and it's an AL East matchup. So most of our games, we're all going with the East Coast. We're going to be going with games that we'll be awake for. At least I know I'll be awake for, Brett. I don't know about you, you early bird.
Early bird.
But Red Sox at Rays on Friday night. We have a much different matchup than the first game I'm talking about. These pitchers have come out rather well to start. Michael Wacha has an ERA south of 1 through 2 starts. Corey Kluber, ERA south of 2 for 2 starts. Neither of these guys have found a win yet. Boston, though, Boston's the underdog here, and the Rays to start the season are 2-6 when they are favorites at the book. So I'm fading them because it just feels like an early trend, and Boston at plus 118 seems like some nice value to me.
Yeah, fair enough, Higgins. I think you found a nice little nugget there. Why not hop on before that nugget cools off? So, yeah, I think that's fair. But I will say this, Higgins. If you're just telling me, pick a team who I think's going to win the most times this season in this matchup, I'd probably lean Rays. I think they do have the better pitching staff top to bottom. And, they do have some explosion in their lineup now. Wander Franco up in the majors. Arozarena, obviously we know about him from the 2020 World Series year. So, it's not like the Rays have a bunch of nobodies, but, I think Tampa probably better overall, but I think your trend would point, why not take the Boston and the plus money there?
I think it'll be a close game. I think those pitchers, so far, they've come out strong. Maybe one gets rattled in their third outing, or maybe they continue it. It'll be interesting. There's a few MLB series that I'm going to be keeping my eye on this weekend, Brett. The Angels hosting the Orioles, I think, should have some value at different points. Not necessarily on Friday night with Bruce Zimmerman versus Reed Detmers, but maybe a different pitching matchup. The Blue Jays-Astros, that should just be a fun series to watch, in my opinion. I think the Blue Jays are a very talented team. And we got our first Dodgers-Padres series of the year between these two teams. And that's going to be a very contentious duo or match-off. That's going to be a very contentious matchup anytime those two face off this year.
Yeah, I think you pointed to some good series, Higgins. I know the NHL is winding down as well. So, look, this is the most fun time of the year with the NFL draft coming up as well, Higgins. It feels like, another sports apocalypse or whatever it's called. The sports eclipse is on us again.
Sports equinox, I think.
Equinox, whatever. I was trying to come up with all the words, and I came up with none of them.
Well, you mentioned the NHL, and Brett, you're right. The NHL's coming to a close here over the next few days. Next Friday, actually, the 29th, is the last day of the regular season, and there's a few Western Conference spots that are available. There's a few different slide ups or slide downs that are still possible for certain teams. So there's a lot that's still being played for. I'm just very apprehensive to be betting on it right now. So unless there's a very good matchup or some very good odds, I'm staying away until the playoffs are officially among us. Because once the Stanley Cup playoffs start, Brett, I think we can agree that's some of the most exciting playoffs that we get in any sports.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and I will be locked in, Higgins, as my New York Rangers are very good this year and could have a chance to come out of the East here.
Yes, you will be having a fan interest in it. I, as a Flyers fan, will not.
No, you're dead, but that's okay, Higgins. Always next year.
I'll be able to lick my wounds at the end of the NHL season by watching the NFL draft that starts next Thursday, because personally, I love watching the NFL draft, especially like day 3 when it's the obscure guys, where it's the scouts that are getting their shot in the big room to pick their guy on one of those late days, and you have the guys at the TV table scrambling, trying to talk about someone that they might only have a few clips of.
Yeah, no, I think the NFL draft is a lot of fun, Higgins. I saw something Bud Light is giving away $15 million if you get the first 32 picks correct in order. So it doesn't need to be the teams, you just need to get the picks right? So when I win my $15 million, Higgins, you will not be seeing me ever again. I will be on my private island. No internet there. Really tough to reach me.
That 15 million is not turning into your new bankroll?
No. I'm just probably going to go sail away, not show up to the office, not show up to the podcast.
Well, I feel like that's probably about as hard as getting a perfect bracket in March Madness.
I don't think I think that 15 million is safe. I don't think.
I think that 15 million is very safe.
I don't think Bud Light's giving that away, but just so everyone knows, it's mine.
So, I'll ask you, since we're going to briefly talk about the draft right now, what's your merit for mock drafts? For example, I saw a mock draft. I think it was Maurice Jones-Drew, a former running back. He had 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm definitely not expecting that, but it seems like it's chaos and shuffling and shots in the dark a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, look, my guess is the people that put these out are talking to someone, whether it be a team scout or something, right? Or, maybe they have good relationships with the college player, right? And or the agent, and this is what the agent's telling him, right? So my guess is, Higgins, it comes from some sort of info, right? And then you have to also understand, like, if this is coming from an agent, like, do I think he's trying to build his guy up? Do I think there's a realistic shot his guy could go here, right? So that's kind of up to the mock drafter, I guess. But I'll say this. I think mock drafts are fun to talk about. I think, generally speaking, maybe the first 2 to 5 picks people are on or near, right? Like on or near. And then, anything can happen. I think a lot of times what blows up these mock drafts and people don't really take into consideration is, a trade is made, right? So, like, some team trades into the top 6, top 7, right? And that affects the draft order. Maybe this is a QB-hungry team trading up to 5 to jump ahead of the Carolina Panthers at 6, who a team, that is jumping in has deemed, the Panthers are picking a quarterback, we have to get ahead of them, right? So you don't know what all 32 teams are thinking. There's rarely a consensus throughout, right? Because even on an own team scouting department, you're going to have, the entire scouting department submit rankings, position rankings, player rankings, right? And, they'll fill out their own mock drafts, and no one's going to have the exact, or you hope no one has the exact same thing.
This is also, I'd say, a very unique draft because, for one, it's not a quarterback-dominant draft that's who everyone's talking about going number 1 overall. No one's really talking about a quarterback going number 1 overall this year. And typically, those years, they can be looked at as weaker drafts. This is being talked about as a very strong draft in a number of positions, both on offense and defense. And to our trade talk that we had at the top of the show about Deebo Samuel or someone like A.J. Brown or even DK Metcalf, who all have had their names in the rumor mill as teams are talking and discussing trying to get up in the draft. I think the biggest thing that hurts those guys in terms of trade potential and their value is how many good potential receivers there are in this draft and how many receivers there are being talked about in the top first 2 rounds being potentially taken.
Maybe Higgins. I would say probably not going to have anyone put up Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown numbers this year, but you're right. These players can certainly develop into number 1 wide receivers. Obviously, Deebo Samuel wasn't what he is today, year 1 or day 1, right? A.J. Brown, same thing, but
the last 2 years, we've seen Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase shatter rookie receiving records. So is this just going to keep happening in this pass-hungry league that we see right now, or are those two just that gifted?
Well, I mean,
think there's that gifted
for
part.
every Justin Jefferson, there's a Jalen Reagor. For every, DK Metcalf, right? There's a Arcega Whiteside. There was Miles Boykins, a Ravens player, was waived the other day. He was a former third-round wide receiver out of Notre Dame. This is, that's a pretty solid investment in your football team, a third-round pick, Higgins. And, this guy's waived a few years later. So you're hoping at the 10th pick, at the 11th pick, at the 15th pick, you're hoping you could draft an A.J. Brown. But wouldn't you rather just have an A.J. Brown?
That's the debate going on in a lot of these front offices. And sometimes you're also debating, do you want the young legs or do you want the guy that's proven but potentially has had some injury history like A.J. Brown? I don't know. It's very interesting. We've had such an explosive offseason in terms of players being moved and everything. I almost expect there to be more trades in this final week, but who knows? Maybe it's all just settled down and everyone's holding their cards tight, and until Thursday, we're not going to hear anything.
Yeah, we shall see. But Higgins, you're leading off the pick of the pod, Levy Lock. You're a winner. I'm a big fat loser. So why don't you take us out?
All right, well, let's get out the broom and let's complete the sweep. I'm going with Sixers -3. They've been covering throughout this series. Toronto's back's pressed against the wall. Like you said earlier, they're battling some injuries. And I really do think that late three-pointer by Joel Embiid could be one of those tide-shifting moments for this team where they see the bucket fall for them this time instead of it falling for the other guy like they did in the playoffs a few years ago. Philly -3, complete the sweep, head into the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Higgins, I'm sorry, but I am shocked because when we were recording this podcast, we went into the recording, the Timberwolves were up nearly 20 points.
Did the Grizzlies come back?
Not only did they come back, they're going to win by double digits, Higgins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's two 20-point leads surrendered in this game by Minnesota. So
they were over plus 700 at one point, the Grizzlies, I think near halftime.
Yeah, so that is quite a comeback on Thursday night by the Memphis Grizzlies there. Oh, I was wrong, Higgins. They actually win by 9 points as a meaningless 3 goes in. So a 9-point final there. But yeah, I will hop in to my Levy Lock now as we are stunned here on the podcast. But
that is surprising.
I will go into the Levy Lock, and I'm going over to this Heat Hawks series, Higgins. You mentioned a sweep. I think another one's coming in the East between the Hawks and the Heat. Heat have a 2-0 series lead. This series has not even been close so far, Higgins. I am nervous for Atlanta without their big man, so give me the Heat -1.5 on the road.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting. I'm going back-to-back Sixers for my pick of the pod. That's the main thing that has me nervous about this pick, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair point, Higgins.
Make sure to follow us on social media. We'll be posting some picks between now and next episode. At NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 199 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again very soon.